Is there another old Nebraska football coach from whom Matt Rhule could learn something? That's coming up. And we've got weekend picks next.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase.
All right, welcome. Happy Friday. Connor Happer from 1620 The Zone and Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. It's our picks and prediction show, but there's no Nebraska game to pick or predict this weekend. So we have a couple questions, or one particular question from a listener that I'd like to talk about here in this first couple minutes in replacement of our Nebraska picks. So let's do that. Elsewhere, we'll be picking plenty of other games with direct connections to Nebraska. Really, 4 games in the Big Ten this weekend that are pretty big for each of those 8 teams. And then we'll take a look nationally as well ahead of the weekend. But first, an interesting question, as you teased. So Matt Rhule has gotten wisdom from other former Nebraska football coaches, most chiefly, I think, Tom Osborne, who Frank Solich. He's made mention, Rhule's made mention several times about how he'll call Tom Osborne just to bounce something off of him.
Called him after the Indiana game.
Yeah.
Look what that did.
A crucial time. Yeah. Is there another coach? Here is a question from Kane, who is a listener of the podcast, and he sent you a direct message. Would you like to read this direct message to the listeners?
Yeah, Kane and I had a little chat, and originally this was inspired by our Thursday mailbag show. He was listening to the Thursday mailbag show and fired this off and said he wasn't sure how to reach us for the mailbag. If you do want to reach us for the mailbag for future reference, you can always hit us up on email at lockedonneb@gmail.com. You can respond on YouTube. We'll find that after the Wednesday show when we're putting the mailbag together. Or you can go to Twitter.
DM works too. Yeah.
DM works, Twitter, X. That's where Kane found me. And his question is, why doesn't Matt Rhule ask Coach Bo to look at the program, since he's the only coach to have success in the past 20 years at Nebraska, and he knew how to win at Nebraska?
So the first thing that comes to my head when we think about this is it basically turns into like an SNL sketch in my head, because everything is comedy, where you're bringing in all of the former coaches who have been fired at Nebraska, and you're asking them their opinions on what went wrong, and they at the end of it they're all commiserating about the same things or different things or whatever it might be. That
would be a long conversation if you talk to all of them about what went wrong.
I've talked about this on our shows on 1620 The Zone before. Like, I wonder what it would be like if you got all of those coaches together in a room, and just sat them down for an hour and you recorded
have them together on a podcast.
Oh my God. I mean, it would be epic. And I think we'd learn a lot, not only about the details of what happened about their times here, but also some of the inner workings of the program and why it wasn't able to work. We know Bo had strong opinions on why it didn't work. So, I mean, why not?
Look, I mean, and we're just talking about, I think, post-Solich, because Solich, Osborne has been in the public eye since the day he retired, and Solich has come around in the last couple of years. He was also a head coach at Ohio, and he's come around in the last couple of years to re-embracing Nebraska and has been back and has talked about these things. So we're talking, I think, post Frank Solich. And if you were to attempt to talk to these men, so Bill Callahan among the group is the only one coaching. He's the only former Nebraska head coach who's still coaching. He's still coaching football. His son, Brian is the head coach of the Tennessee Titans. As I
Yeah.
think we've discussed long ago, this came about because when Bill was at Nebraska, Brian was a quarterback at UCLA. It's all coming full circle. UCLA is back in the conversation. And Brian
Wow.
would come home on break from school and he got to know Zach Taylor, or at least he brushed elbows with Zach Taylor, who was the quarterback at Nebraska at that time. And Brian later became Zach Taylor's offensive coordinator, which he parlayed into a job as the head coach of the Titans, and then hired his dad away from the Cleveland Browns. So I was thinking, did Cleveland change? Nope, that's baseball. So Bill's still coaching, has never spoken about Nebraska publicly since he was fired in 2007. Bo not coaching anywhere, hanging in Youngstown. Brother Carl, coach at Cardinal Mooney, their high school, running into some Carl issues as
Always.
yeah. And Bo has never really spoken publicly about his time at Nebraska.
Very little.
Replacement Mike Riley is on the college football playoff committee, no longer coaching. He would happily talk about all of his time at Nebraska and everything that went right and went wrong. You would probably have to make him stop talking about it. And then Scott Frost, it's only been 2 years. He did talk a year or so ago in an interview with CBS that was essentially fluffy and excuse making. I don't know. Like, of all the coaches who could potentially be in Matt Rhule's Rolodex beyond Osborne and Solich, who have history at Nebraska, the one I think that he could learn something from is, yes, Kane, is Bo Pelini. How did he handle the spotlight? Because Bo did nothing but have sustained, well, he did other things, but he had sustained success, won 9 games every year. He's the only one in this group who had sustained success. Callahan had an 8-win season and a 9-win season. Riley had a 9-win season. But Bo always had 9-win seasons. So he probably could lend some advice for Matt Rhule. But what do you think? Because I don't think that conversation could ever happen.
No, I would love it to, but probably not. I actually think that the coach you could draw the most from in terms of, like, I don't know if Frost would have the answers, but they could at least sort of talk about it. It's not only because of the timing, because it was the most recent one, but like, I think Bo and Bill Callahan's jobs were different, and they ran into struggles in part because
they wanted to be football guys,
but there was a lot of stuff going on above their heads during their times. And I mean, when Frost came in, it was pretty well aligned. It was, even though that they had just hired
a little while,
it stayed that way for a little while. But Frost had the autonomy to do whatever he felt was necessary, much like Rhule has, I think, at the moment. So maybe that's the closest one-to-one. But man, I just would love to bounce the ideas off of, like, those people, to bounce ideas off of each other, what they ran into and how they did or didn't get the job done from their perspectives.
Yeah, I think the thing that would be a common thread between all of them is that they underestimated the forces at work behind the scenes and above them. They underestimated some of the things that were in place to help them, but didn't necessarily always help them. And that's the politics of Nebraska football. The politics of Nebraska football are the politics of the university, which are the politics of the state of Nebraska. And it still very, very much exists in today's world for Matt Rhule. What Matt Rhule is that some of the others were not is he's more of a diplomat, and he can appeal to people in a way that is just unique. Frost, that wasn't a skill necessarily. I don't think it was even a desire of his. And then with Riley and Callahan, it was just outside of their realm. They didn't know what they were walking into when they came and encountered that part of the job. For Pelini, who was here the longest out of all of them, I think he had a decent understanding of it because he'd been at Nebraska for a short time and had people with him who were well connected to Nebraska from that 2003 staff. Ultimately, it led to his failure, his departure, because he wasn't the kind of diplomat that Matt Rhule is. And I think the two of them could have a very interesting conversation that potentially could help Matt Rhule in some like abstract way. But I don't think that Bo Pelini would ever help the University of Nebraska in any way after his exit.
Yeah.
And it's not that Nebraska
are gone,
yeah, Yeah, they are gone. It doesn't matter. Like there's still the N on the door. I just I don't think so. We talk about all of this. We bring it up, and Kane's question was intriguing and timely because Matt Rhule is looking for outside people, and he went to find his people, his outside people, Dana Holgorsen and Phil Snow, but not outside people who know Nebraska. And there would be some benefit in that too. And I'm not talking about the guys that he has on staff. I think there would be some benefit in him looking somewhere other than Tom Osborne and Frank Solich, to people who have a more recent connection to Nebraska, but aren't a part of the institution now. I think that could potentially help him with some things here. Although those aren't the things that he's struggling with. And I think that's important to note. He's struggling with they're struggling with the football stuff. And yeah.
I would trust Rhule though to gather this information and then use it to his advantage. Like that's kind of in his DNA. And then you think about like the football stuff. Callahan is an offensive line guy. Bo is a defensive guy, and Scott Frost is an offensive coordinator at heart. Like Matt Rhule is basically bringing in a version of Scott Frost in Dana Holgorsen, guy who just maybe it just doesn't all work for him as far as the head coach CEO role, and doesn't like to deal with the other stuff and be a face of a program, but he loves offense. He loves to coordinate offense, and he likes to draw offense up. I think Frost would really thrive in that situation, to be completely honest with you.
Okay. In another world where the Nebraska job wasn't open after 2017 and Scott Frost is thriving at UCF and then moves to the Power 5, he could have been Dana Holgorsen. Scott Frost could have coached for 13 years at the Power 5, Power 4 level and had a run like Dana Holgorsen, where he scored 34 points a game over that entire stretch, and maybe ran into some potholes, some issues on the other stuff. So yeah, that's intriguing to think of that this is the direction that Rhule has gone, and there's a similarity, a comparison there. So.
What a thought. Look forward to the podcast that'll release in 2046 about all this stuff, maybe, but don't hold your breath. We'll take a break here. Appreciate you guys being with us here on a Friday. Let's take a look at some Big Ten games when we return on the other side of the Locked On Nebraska podcast.
Okay, a moment here to tell you about LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals who are right for the role. That's why you've got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. It has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team fast and for free. It's not just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who are not actively searching for a job. In a given month, more than 70% of LinkedIn users do not visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you are looking in the wrong place, because 86% of small businesses on LinkedIn get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply.
And I want to tell you a little bit about Home Field, the official exclusive apparel provider of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. We love the gear, folks. It is fantastic. And I think the greatest part about this is it's for all seasons. As the weather sort of cools down, there is options for you. We're talking about vintage, like really, really cool college football gear made by college football fans for college football fans. So they are here to make your experience more enjoyable. Home Field, a premium collegiate apparel brand based in Indianapolis, and they specialize in incredibly comfortable, officially licensed apparel with vintage designs. And they're gearing you up, like I said, for the entire season. You can get the football box. You can get the VIP box. There's a ton of extra stuff in there for you as well. The shirts, the hoodies. You're going to get a question every time you wear a Home Field shirt out in public. Where did you get that? And you tell them homefieldapparel.com. And you also tell them that you use the code GBR24 at checkout, and then you got 15% off your first purchase. That's pretty good. So I would do that right now if you want to be the life of the football tailgate here in the latter portion of the season. Once again, head to homefieldapparel.com, use that code GBR24 at checkout, and you're going to save a little bit. That's our friends from Home Field.
Okay, welcome back. Making our way through a Friday edition of the Locked On Nebraska pod. It is time for our picks. Quick review for the season. I'm 36 correct picks on Nebraska props. You're 29. Nebraska against the spread. I am a dismal 3-5-1. You are an even worse 2-6-1. Overall, though, outside of the Nebraska realm, Connor, you lead me by 7 games. It's getting wide. You're 43-36-1. Not bad. I'm 37-42-1. And on the bonus bets, I've got 1. You've got 2. 2 are still pending. So today we are picking a game that kicks off tonight at 8:00 Central Time on the West Coast at the Rose Bowl, Iowa. First visit to the San Gabriel Mountains since January 1, 2016, when Christian McCaffrey took it to the Hawks. This game is not going to be like that. Iowa is a 5.5-point favorite, 8 p.m. on Fox. What happens tonight in the Rose Bowl? Interesting game from a Nebraska perspective, considering what happened in Lincoln recently and where the Huskers go on Black Friday.
I saw some chatter going around this week about Iowa and their lack of trips to the West Coast. Basically, the only time they've gone to the West Coast in, the last 20, 25 years under Kirk Ferentz is when they play a bowl game. And that's it. Like nothing else. Like Nebraska's played home and homes with USC and UCLA and Oregon and Washington during that time. Now all those teams are in the conference now, so they'll be going there with more frequency. So it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
For
Cal. Yeah.
Right, Cal. It's a little bit different now. Iowa's a 5.5-point favorite. I'm going to take the Hawks to win by at least a touchdown tonight as the sun sets behind the San Gabriel Mountains. The sun will have set probably.
I think so. 6:00 local time. I don't know. The plan for me is still to be out there next week. So unless something changes, I'll check on the sunset for you while I'm there. I think that's the only way we can do that. I'm also picking Iowa. I think Iowa is playing good football. They found something with Brendan Sullivan at quarterback, the Northwestern transfer, and they're scoring points. So if Iowa scores points, they're a good team. Minnesota, -6 at Rutgers. This game, 11 a.m. on NBC Saturday. Gophers going for a 7th win. How about that?
Yeah, this is an intriguing game. I mean, this is Minnesota's kind of taken a few people by surprise this year, and Rutgers, it's just not put it. You could make the case that Nebraska broke them. Nebraska gave them their first loss of the season. Then they lost against Wisconsin big. Then they lost to UCLA, and then they lost to USC. They're going to have to scratch and claw to get 2 more wins out of their Final Four when they play Minnesota, Maryland, and Illinois. I am going to take Rutgers to cover the 6 at home against Minnesota, just because I'm quite confident that this game will be close. I'm kind of sad that I don't get an extra point there with the touchdown for cover, but I think it's going to be within that spread. Give me Rutgers.
Yeah, FanDuel wasn't listing this game, so I had to go to ESPN for the spread. And usually FanDuel has that extra hook in there. Hopefully we don't have a push on this game. We'd hate to have that, but I'm taking Minnesota. I like what you just said about it being a low scoring, tightly contested game, but Minnesota's been rolling and Rutgers has been going the other direction, or at least Minnesota's been playing well. Two more to pick in the Big Ten. We've got Michigan at number 8. This is a college football playoff ranking. Number 8, Indiana. Hoosiers, 14.5-point favorite at home, 2:30 p.m. CBS is in town.
This is, it's a crazy one to look at, right? Indiana is the ranked team.
The spread of the names itself is crazy.
The Indiana's the top 10 team. Indiana's favored by 2 touchdowns and a hook there. This is fantastic. But I shouldn't say but, because I'm going to pick in Indiana here. I just don't trust Michigan to score enough points, I guess. Like, they can match them physically, and I'm really curious to see Indiana against maybe a physically superior team. But Indiana's just rolling with such confidence right now. And I don't think Michigan, with their lack of offense, is the team to keep up with them. So I'll just, I'm like, Michigan, what are they going to score? 10, 20 points. I think Indiana's good for probably in the 30 to 35 range, as they have been. So I'll take the Hoosiers. I don't love it, but I'll take the Hoosiers.
Too much good vibes with Indiana. I mean, I could see this game being 28-14, which would be a Michigan cover, but I'm going with Indiana too. Like, I'm riding that train at this point. Last game we pick in the Big Ten. The others, and this one kind of fell into that same category. The games we didn't list on here were Ohio State and Oregon, both as Ohio State's playing Purdue, and who's Oregon playing? They're both both big favorites, and this weren't intriguing to me. This one's slightly more intriguing because Penn State's coming off its first loss against Ohio State last week. Nittany Lions, ranked number 6. Are a 13.5-point favorite at home against Washington, going back out on that long road trip, which those have been rough for the Huskies.
I know the vibes are down for Penn State, but I was making the case today on my show. Like, I think there's a definitive gap between Penn State and the teams behind them. There's just also a gap between Penn State and the teams above them, like Ohio State and like Oregon. So I'm gonna
usually the way it is.
Yeah, I'm going to take Penn State here to cover the 13.5 at home. You watch one thing that I'm curious about is, like, the week after you play Ohio State, and it was kind of a grueling game, they kind of took a beating in that game physically. How are they going to hold up in this one? I will take Penn State to cover against Washington, though.
Yeah, me too. I think Penn State bounces back. Penn State has that motivation of knowing that it's by no means out of the race to make the college football playoff, which is at least something new when it comes off of its annual loss against Ohio State. So I think they'll find something there and handle Washington at home. All right, when we come back, we got national games. Big one in Baton Rouge on Saturday night. We'll talk about that and several other games next. All right, Mitch Sherman here to tell you about Robinhood Gold. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn a very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash, receive unlimited 1% deposit bonuses, and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC.
And I want to tell you a little bit about the FanDuel Sportsbook. Get ready to take in the NFL action this weekend with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get a $150 bonus bet, $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. That is handy when the games are coming at you hot on Sundays. Also, I mean, it's not just Sundays. It's all across the board. So if you want to hang out and pick with us in college football games, you are welcome to do that as well. Head to FanDuel.com and join today. And once again, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's with FanDuel. Head to FanDuel.com today to get started. All right, welcome back. Big games, a lot of playoff implications this weekend on the national scene as we head into the second weekend of November. Nebraska will sit idly by and watch the rest of it around them. Let's start. We'll pick 3 games in the SEC out of these 4. We'll start with Georgia, who's an 8.5-point favorite at Ole Miss. This is a 2:30 kick on Saturday on ABC.
Yeah, maybe it probably is a playoff eliminator game for Ole Miss. Ole Miss at home has got to defend its home field, or Lane Kiffin's group is probably going to be on the outside, looking in the month of December. I like Georgia. I like Georgia to cover, win, and win relatively easy fashion. Go Dogs.
Yeah. I think the line's kind of bouncing all over the place a little bit in this game as well. Kind of interesting. Georgia has been inconsistent, but gosh, it's still Georgia. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. And I know, we don't like talking about benefits of the doubt for big programs when we're making college football playoff rankings and stuff like that. But I'm gonna do that with Georgia. I do think they go to Ole Miss in front of a revved up environment down there, and they win the football game and they cover pretty easily, I think.
Yeah, that's my thought.
Let's go to the Big 12. This is an interesting one. So, I mean, you want to talk about college football playoff eliminators? Colorado is still in the mix. They'll have to get some help in front of them in the Big 12, and they'll have to win out for them to get to the Big 12 championship game. But they do have an opportunity to do that. They'll have to win at Texas Tech this weekend, 3:00 on Fox. Texas Tech coming off of that win against Iowa State last week. Colorado is a 4.5-point favorite on the road.
Yeah, I'm puzzled by this a little bit. I don't know. I think this one looks fishy. I think this is the books kind of preying on the excitement around Colorado, much more of a name situation, name program with Deion Sanders and the star power there than Texas Tech is. I think Texas Tech wins the game. So pretty easy pick for me on the spread. Texas Tech win outright. Wrong team favored.
If you'd like to see some points, I'll direct you to this game, even though both defenses have been a little better lately.
To play too.
It's a tough place to, like, the whole thing. It's a tough environment. I'm with you. I don't want to piggyback too much here, but I will not go as far as you did and say that Texas Tech wins the game, but I will take Texas Tech to cover partly because Colorado has never played a normal game in their lives. It's going to be within a score just because it usually is with that group. So give me Texas Tech. Back to the South. This is a college football playoff eliminator game potentially as well. Alabama is a 2.5-point favorite at LSU. Nighttime, ABC. LSU announced on Thursday that they will have a live tiger on the sideline during this game. No big deal.
He's in a cage.
I kind of imagine he was going to be roaming around, like let's go. No,
why not?
Stationary. Yeah. I went to Baton Rouge. I stopped through Baton Rouge one time. I didn't see a game there, but I went by Mike the Tiger's enclosure. It's horrifying. It's like you don't have an appreciation for a real life tiger until you see a real life tiger. It's intimidating. And because of this tiger, I will take LSU to win the football game.
Do you know which Mike you saw?
This was probably in 18 or 19. I don't know. It was
probably Mike 6, which was the latest Mike. Yeah. He has since passed away. Ugh. And I don't think there's a new Mike at this point. Really? I could be wrong. I'm sorry if there is, but the tiger that's coming for the game on Saturday night is not Mike like Mike. There's no Mike 7. I don't think so. I'm not sure what's going on with the Mike situation, but I've also seen Mike the Tiger. And you got anything for me? Are you looking something up?
So this is not Mike 7. They will be bringing in a tiger named Omar.
What's up with that? Is there a Mike 7? So Mike 7, does he live in the enclosure?
They do have Mike 7, but it will not be. So there will be 2 tigers on campus.
Nothing could go wrong with that.
Yeah, I'm going for Omar here. Give me the Tigers. Go Tigers.
Yeah, I think the wrong team's favored again. I will take LSU to win the game outright.
And we finish in. Hey man, this is a Big 12 game. This is stupid. Well, I hate conference.
When you said 3 SEC, I was like, no, the last one's the Big 12.
I hate conference realignment, but it has given us an old Big 12 game, potential Big 12 championship matchup between Oklahoma and Missouri. Oklahoma is this true? Oklahoma is a 2.5 point favorite at Missouri. I guess nobody feels great about either of these teams, but boy, I really don't feel good about Oklahoma at the moment.
I hear you.
Mizzou.
Yeah. I'm same way.
Yeah.
Same way. And I'll say it again, 3 in a row. I'm taking the underdog to win the game. Missouri wins the game and covers. So Oklahoma, maybe it has something to do with the fact, one, Missouri, last time we saw them, lost 30-something to nothing against Alabama, but then had a bye week. Oklahoma, fine. It beat Maine last week. Bonus bet for us. We said how many points were the Sooners going to score. They outdid it. They scored a lot of points.
They had 59.
Yeah. So Oklahoma is trying to get bowl eligible in this game. And if the Sooners do not get bowl eligible in Columbia on Saturday night, 6:45 p.m. SEC Network, then they finish. Well, either way, they finish against Alabama and LSU. I think it's LSU.
It is.
So yeah, it's Oklahoma might not be going to a bowl game. Probably won't be going to a bowl game if the Sooners don't find a way to get a victory against number 24 Missouri. And I'm going to say that they don't do it.
Do we have a bonus bet this week? Would you like to explain our bonus bet?
Yeah, so Florida State is the subject of our bonus bet this week. The Seminoles are riding an 8-game streak of scoring in the teens, between 11 and 16 points in every game this season since they put up 21 in Ireland in that loss to Georgia Tech that destroyed Florida State football as we know it. The Noles, remember, were 13-0 last season when snubbed by the CFP committee. They are 1-8 this year, playing on Saturday at number 10 Notre Dame, which is unequivocally the best defense that Florida State has faced this year. The Irish are 4th nationally in scoring defense, giving up 12 a game, and 7th in total defense. So the question, you must get within 3 to win the bonus bet. How many points will Florida State score in South Bend?
10.
Yeah, I have it written down. I have the same thing. I've already written it down. I said 10. So this is not going to be interesting for us. We're going to both win.
Everything the same.
We pretty much picked everything the same today. All right. We'll be back on Monday and we'll try to disagree on some stuff. Matt Rhule will be up to talk about USC. He will talk about Dana Holgorsen and Phil Snow coming in, probably try to tell us that it's not a big deal. We will ask questions, and then we will see how Nebraska progresses through its game week, going into game number 10 out at the Coliseum next week, a week from Saturday, 3 p.m. local, 3 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. Pacific time. All right, we'll get to all that next week. For now, thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen. Now go check out the Locked On College Football podcast. Spencer McLaughlin's got you covered to get you through everything of Week 11. You can find the link to that show in the description of this show. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.